on today's World Insight, blossoming ties between China and the United Arab Emirates, with the UAE the guest of honor at CIFTIS 2022. What's next for relations, in the words of the UAE Ambassador to China?
UAE enjoys an excellent relationship with the founding members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
This is our host, Tian.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian. China and the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, have always maintained close relations. In the nearly 4 decades of friendship, the two have strived to work together with other like-minded countries, finding ways to fix cross-border challenges and to jumpstart economic growth. As a result, China and the UAE have banded together in new and exciting areas. As the guest of honor at this year's CIFTIS earlier, the UAE set up a national exhibition, Pavilion, for the very first time. A number of well-known UAE companies in aviation, finance, and culture have taken part.
Anyway,
Mr. Ambassador, good to see you.
Good to have you here. Welcome to our pavilion.
So wonderful to see your pavilion.
Well, we are very happy to be a part of CIFTIS this time. But of course, this is the 3rd round of CIFTIS, and we've been actively all participating in all CIFTIS rounds. But this year is really special.
Of course, you're the guest of honor for this year.
We are the guest of honors, and we are really proud of it. And even our aviation, our airlines, of course, Etihad and Emirates, are playing a big role in connecting our people, our both countries, actively in many different ways, in terms of culture, in terms of trade, in terms of business, tourism.
Looking forward to the airplane
Yeah,
going through the sky
And
over the Forbidden City.
And we have the dragon in Etihad there. Yeah, let me take you here.
All right, so that is quite a UAE corner, isn't it? So camels.
Yes, yes.
And at the hotels in the desert.
This is Burj Al Arab, of course. This is very famous, and this is Burj Khalifa, and this is the Palm Island, and yeah, these are only flavors. Okay, but I think when you see it with your own eyes, when you visit UAE, that means big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure many Chinese tourists are really looking forward to making the trip.
We are very proud of all Chinese tourists. Yeah, they're really our great friends. So let me just share this with you. This is a model of cooperation between UAE and China. This is a joint cooperation between Sinopharm and G42, and of course what is really important then the production of the vaccine in the UAE. So this is really a major project, and it's really an excellent model of cooperation in healthcare.
You're all vaccinated.
We are very fully vaccinated. Fully.
Yes, to guarantee the health.
Yes.
In 2021, the bilateral trade between China and the UAE topped $72 billion, a more than 40% rise year on year. But relations mean so much more than numbers. So how deeper and wider is China's trade ties with the UAE? Where are the relations heading for? What does the UAE expect from the upcoming SCO summit? On these and more, I had talked to the UAE Ambassador to China, Ali Obaid Al Dhaheri. It was so nice to have you showing us around at the CIFTIS UAE Pavilion. But this is only one of those many interactions you have with the local Chinese. You also went to Chinese schools, you went to restaurants and interact with the Chinese. What was it like to be the ambassador here now?
It's a wonderful thing. I look at my role as more into building a relationship and creating bridges in different ways and different means, connecting to the people, connecting to the public, being close to the children, and I spent my morning visiting a school, taking me back to school, my school time. But the schools these days are more beautiful than my old days, and they are so. And to see the focus on the children more into building their skills, building their being more confident about themselves, more passionate about what they do, what they would like to say, rather than just reading books and doing exams. So it's really a great interaction, and we see how we can work closely with the schools, how we can create exchanges, how we can
among
build
the young
relationship.
people, right?
Of
Among
co-
the young
of-
people,
of
among
course,
the children
of course,
both
of
countries.
course. That make me feel younger also.
Did they accept a new
Yeah.
classmate coming from
Yeah,
UAE?
I was getting close to apply, but then they were not sure. They were hesitant a little bit.
Not only that, but your real official work as ambassador here for UAE, so much interactions between China and UAE over the past few years. One has been very much amazed by how much work you've been doing. Trade and economic ties, Mr. Ambassador, for example. It's amazing. We see an upswing just like that.
If someone asked me, I mean, today, this morning, okay, one of the directors of communication, and he was saying, Ambassador, what are your focus, okay, here in China? And I told him simple words. I told him B2B and P2P, business to business and people to people. That's my everyday role and focus. Okay, there's no political issues. So why I spend so much time in this? I'm only focusing in B2B, people to people.
China-UAE, we have seen cooperation in vaccine, for example. It is not just about friendship anymore. It's much beyond. It's about healthcare. It's also about how the two countries can work together for innovation. It's also about how the two countries can work together in a third-party country, for example. UAE has been a producing center for many of the vaccines originally coming from China. So tell me more, Mr. Ambassador, about this cooperation.
I'm glad that you asked about this venture between Sinopharm and G42 in the UAE. It's really a model of cooperation between international companies or between countries. Let me start by, we started with the relationship by taking Sinopharm vaccine in trial basis in the UAE. And UAE, the first country to approach a Chinese vaccine or Sinopharm to explore this opportunity. And we're all fighting the global virus, which is a pandemic, COVID-19. So we started on a trial basis, and then that moved into putting it or rolling it out to the public. And then we moved into the start production of the vaccine in the UAE. We are talking about 200 million production, which is really very sizable production of the vaccine. Not for UAE, not for China, for the rest of the world. And this is the attention. Now, this relationship has been going even beyond this. The relationship between G42 and Sinopharm become more focused into across the board of healthcare. This is an area. Second, not only in the UAE, moving together to third country, okay, where these countries, where UAE has an excellent relationship, and we're building up into across the board of partnering in different areas. So many countries, or a few countries, which we have gone to, developing this relationship even beyond UAE and China.
It's very interesting. Let's explain the details. How does that work, that model work? So it's UAE and China having some sort of joint venture, and the products from this joint venture will be able to be promoted and available to countries in your region, which UAE and China both feeling being partner about. Tell me more about the details.
Well, look, what we can do, you see, for example, we have started the production in the UAE. Now we moved into the vaccine, and now we are moving into across the board of healthcare. And we look into, there's closer to another market, which is important, and there's a big need for the vaccine and the healthcare, such as we are talking about Serbia, such as Egypt, Morocco, Bahrain. So, and some other countries, which is in the pipeline also.
It's certainly a very inspiring model.
Sure.
Do you see that is likely to be developed into other fields?
Of course. This is one model I'm talking about. I'm very positive. There are similar models with the same approaches, and this is how UAE approach it's I would call it it's a foreign policy in terms more of cooperation, more of connecting together and win-win scenarios, rather than focusing on differences. We start building on where we are matching, where we can sit down and we talk about how we can revamp or bringing up more economic affairs where can be something in it to the people, to the country, to the rest of the world.
So you are saying, Mr. Ambassador, when many others are complaining and being bogged down by geopolitics, you think the road ahead is very clear. That is B2B and P2P.
That's right. That's right. This is the focus, and I think we need to move out from focusing in differences. I believe we can be able to focus more into where we can match, where we are on the same page, where and areas where it could add values for all stakeholders, and then bring up more prosperity. We have a lot of young people who look into their governments and to their people to move forward and to share some prosperity and growth.
But there are difficulties that we all face. Global energy crisis is one of those examples. We've seen some of the places in the world are even worrying about how they're going to spend the winter. UAE, as a big fossil fuel producer in the world, what do you make of the current reality? And as ambassador to China, how are you thinking about this issue?
Indeed, this is a challenge, and I hope there is some wisdom of policymakers and wisdom of diplomacy to sit down and to have a positive dialogue and to overcome such a challenge and to mitigate the way to go through. UAE indeed playing its role and of course encourage such a challenge to be well addressed by meaningful approaches. So this is the way we see things, and indeed UAE playing its role as much as possible from its side, but the rest of the world should be on board to address such a challenge.
We understand UAE is doing a lot of efforts in order to make the energy transformation. You want to make your country sustainable, not just focusing on fossil fuels in its economic model, but also other areas. Mr. Ambassador, how is that trying out process? According to the latest number, 1 trillion local currency of GDP has been developed in UAE in this field. Tell us more about your practices.
I'm glad you brought up this, Chen-Wei. This is an extraordinary time for the UAE. Within the first 6 months of this year, we've been able to achieve, in terms of our trade and services, to reach 1 trillion UAE currency dirham, and this is for the first time to pass the 1 trillion number, and we are very proud of this, and this is non-oil achievement. So this is what makes it even
so the number
to feel
does
prouder.
not include any oil products.
Does not include the oil, non-oil. Yes, yeah. So that's a milestone, and what does it mean? It means our approach in terms of openness, in terms of cooperation approach, win-win scenarios, and of course the measures and the stimulus activities and packages offered by the government and the leadership of the country has been working very well and attracting a lot of investors, attracting a lot of traders, attracting a lot of players who see UAE platform is a great platform to have it as a base and to move beyond internationally. While the UAE's economy was once dominated by oil production, our nation has been transiting towards a sustainable and green economy. The UAE believes that innovation and technology are at the core of social progress and economic growth. The UAE has formulated its UAE Centennial 2071 strategy for the next 50 years. On this basis, we will strive to build up a kindness-ruled government with an emphasis on scientific and technological innovation and leading high-quality education, making the UAE one of the best economies and creating a happy, cohesive society. According to the Global Innovation Index, the UAE is the most innovative economy in the Middle East and North Africa region and is home to internationally renewed research facilities, including the recently established Inception Institution of Artificial Intelligence, Technology Innovation Institute, and Quantum Computing Research Group at Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi, as well as Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. Also, the UAE adopted effective strategies and policies to instill a cultural of innovation in our society and economy. With two signatory industrial strategies, the fourth industrial revolution and Operation 300 billion, we have laid the foundation for our knowledge-based economy. By implementing Operation 300 billion, the UAE aims to develop the UAE's industrial sector and enhance its role in stimulating the national economy, raising the industrial sector's contribution to the GDP from 133 billion to 300 billion by 2031. The UAE's fourth industrial revolution strategy aims to strengthen the UAE position as a global hub for the fourth industrial revolution and increase its contribution to the national economy by means of advancing innovation and future technologies. It also aims to position UAE as a global model in adopting leading-edge technologies to serve society and achieving happiness and sustainability.
The world is changing fast, taking all our lives with it. But we can change it too, by seeking answers to problems through discussions and debates. On World Insight, I ask direct questions to real people in the know, seek genuine answers, but respect diverse perspectives. Our live global debates tackle the most critical issues head-on. World Insight with Tian go beyond the headlines.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
We understand the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is going to hold its annual meeting. UAE is a good partner with many of those members of SCO. Tell me more about your thoughts on this multilateral platform and how UAE has been working with individual members of this organization.
Indeed, Chenwei, I can share with you that UAE we are really looking at this organization as it's revolving and developing itself. Also, you are perfectly right. UAE enjoys an excellent relationship with the founding members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I think the opportunities are over there to work together with all members.
I'm amazed, Mr. Ambassador, about your introduction and the plan. Not just a plan anymore, right? It's already actions. But think about it, how China and UAE will be able to cooperate on these fronts, especially innovation.
It's very simple. We share the same vision with China, that we look at the technology, science and technology is the right model where it will take us to the next horizon. And we share this vision with China, and we share the principles of how we will be looking to conduct our business and our relationship. And that principle, we can look into how we can work with China in this perspective, and how to move forward by equipping our both teams on this, based on the science and technology, artificial intelligence, and so on.
Green development, as you said, very important for your country, also for China, 2030, 2060. As you know, carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, big goal for China. But along the way, all of us understand in the world that there has to be a lot of new innovations in order to achieve our goal, fighting against climate change. So, Mr. Ambassador, are there some specific points that you are looking at in terms of that green innovation development and cooperation?
We have done a lot in terms of developing our green economy. As I said again, it's science and technology is the right method to equip ourselves and to address our environment and to achieve the target where everybody looking to a zero emission by 2050. So we share the same principles over here, and UAE, the first country in our region, put a vision for this, and renewable energy already contributing in our business more than 25% of our energy needs. And when we started this long time ago, with our solar energy investments, and also we developed our nuclear peaceful energy provider. We are in a traditional hydrocarbon or fossil fuel country, and everybody been looking at us, what are we doing? But now I think we are gaining the fruit of that policy, and that's a strategy we have put in place for some time ago.
Some suggest the latest geopolitical changes might be hindering our eventual path to achieve the goals globally. Do you worry about that, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, it's not a worry, but it could be something we should pay attention to. But I think we should not lose our focus. We need to stay focused on and to address our environment needs. We should stay focused on and forward thinking and our vision to equip ourselves with science and technology and the art of artificial intelligence.
Mr. Ambassador, the UAE has been investing in China for decades, and I see many areas of cooperation and increase, for example, in transportation, logistics, banking, and many other areas. Mr. Ambassador, as a former top manager of a fossil fuel company, how do you see, these ever-increasing mutual investment into each other's economy, and also where the synergy and the most important factors might be?
I'm glad you asked this question, Tian. It's very, very important to be very crystal clear over here. What creating this is the best model is there's trust and there's confidence of not only investments from the UAE to China, but also from China to the UAE. UAE side looking at around 600 or more than 650 projects here in China, where, as you mentioned, across the board in terms of in ports, in terms of technology, in terms of financial institution, healthcare, so food security. All of these are important components on the way we move forward. And of course, it has to be mutually driven, win-win scenarios in all of these attractive projects, either in China or in the UAE, or again, to go together to third country, because of the model of developing either China has a great relationship with this country, or UAE has a great relationship with this country, putting our three heads together and working together. And no harm to bring a fourth country together also.
Mr. Ambassador, when you say the factor of trust, it is so important. But how would one trust the other? One would really wonder how economies and countries could be stabilizing factor in their region and bilateral, multilaterally. As a seasoned business person and now a hard-working diplomat, what is your thought?
I think, to create a trust, it doesn't come overnight. Okay, it has to come with some legacy of interaction, and of course the Arab world, and I'm coming from a GCC country in our region. The relationship with China, for example, it's a historical and it's a traditional and built on trust. Okay, so here, for example, I mean the Gulf countries, GCC countries are in discussion with China to develop a free trade agreement and a free zone area where creating stronger bonds of a trade and working environment to deepen the relationship between the GCC countries and China. So this is an important component. When I go, trust doesn't come overnight. There's historical trade. Goes back to the Silk Road or Silk Trade traditionally, and during the time it goes back to the Tian dynasty, where there's exchange of science, exchange of literature, and even Chinese medicine and so on. So this has been historically and built on and continues that trust. And indeed, the Arab world, they don't neglect the big trust China is giving them. And of course, the Chinese side, they are not neglecting the trust, the Arab world putting trust in China.
We are looking forward, Mr. Ambassador, to future good news about the cooperations both between China and UAE and also China and the region you're from. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
UAE Ambassador to China. That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight. Check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.